Hey, welcome to the Hired AV podcast. My name is Joe Way.
And my name is Britt Yenser.
And you are listening to the Hired AV podcast. Yeah,
And
did I leave something out? I left out the host part, and I'm your host.
Oh, yeah, that's who we are. We're hosting.
Yeah. Is it bad that I mess up the... Well, you know what? It throws off. When there's dual guests, it kind of just throws me off. But we're going to have a good one today.
We sure are. And you're going to be listening and possibly viewing.
You are viewing. This is the fourth of four. This is a video podcast. We'll see how this goes. Airing on AVIXA TV too, and maybe someone is standing in the Infocom hall just watching us without the audio. I know we're just like they're just seeing two people talking, and I don't know, or maybe there is audio. That would be annoying. So if you're in the AVIXA booth at Infocom and you're watching AVIXA TV and you see us, I'll just say hello. Hi, Dave Labuscus, Joey Lloyd, all of our favorite people, right? Yes, we can say hi to all of our favorite people. This is I want to say it's still weird. 4 episodes in, and though we're really only recording it on 2 days. Don't tell people that.
Shh,
I mean, we're wearing the same clothes in 2, and then same clothes in 2. But it's okay. Yeah. All right. So let's start. What are your... All right, so this was we're our series 4 of 4, and this was your idea to do a little co-host banter thingy. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Like, how are we doing so far?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're doing great. I think we nailed it. Yeah. Why? What do you think? Are you like, I'm so disappointed that
not at all. No. So here's the thing. I love it, but it's different. Like, it's out of my comfort zone. Like I'm usually I can do interviewer, great. I'm not good at being interviewee, right? I do that. The thing is just different.
Riffing.
It's riffing. It's different, and I'm not a scripter, so that's okay. But yeah, just conversations about things. It's good. I think I like the format.
Yeah. Well, as I always say, the magic happens outside your comfort zone. So.
Yep. And these are hopefully everybody has enjoyed these 4 episodes, and I think that we're going to make random cameos throughout. I think this will continue. This is part 4. Who knows? There might be a part. Who knows what? I don't know. We'll find out. Episode 214 of the Higher Ed AV podcast. Wow, crazy. What are we talking about?
Let's talk about everyone's most favorite topic in the whole wide world, the pandemic. Because I do feel like it significantly shifted things in a lot of ways, both how people interact and especially the technology that we're using. For people who don't know my role, I work in higher ed, and I specifically service the live events that happen at our institution, of which there are very many throughout the year. And I saw a significant shift in our event support to now be doing hybrid events, way more than we would have done before the pandemic started. So I pitched the topic and then was like, and here's what I feel about the topic, but I'll throw it back to you. Where do you want to start about the pandemic?
Right. I mean, we have to start with the fatigue of it, right? I think that's, one of the things I've been saying in kind of my my circuit of things. And in fact, actually, I have a commercial integrator article coming out of the same thing. And I'm talking about the pendulum swing, right? We swung so, from no one ever thought of hybrid and all of that stuff and virtual, and to full everything is. And now the pendulum swing coming back with these kind of different modalities, what it's going to look like. And the one thing that sticks out is, there's technology things, but there's a people factor, and it's the people that got impacted. And I think right now it's the fatigue. Like it makes us cringe to just kind of hear it, because it's like, it brings back that, and maybe in a year we'll be over it, but we're in the cringe factor area right now of it. Which just says a lot of, I think, it's kind of like that. We're in that we need to take a deep breath part. Like, we made it through. Let's breathe and then figure things out. And I think that, I don't know, it's been impactful. Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel, and I bring this up frequently with people, is that we went through a collective trauma and now we are being asked to just move forward as if that trauma did not exist. And so it's like, God, now, do you remember the time when we were all afraid we were going to die? Like, do you remember that? That was very real and that was very scary. And that took its toll. And I
Hmm.
do think, yeah, we definitely need to hold space for those feelings and we need to heal from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Have you seen it impact your teams different? Like, are they, I like to say, we've all become different people, I think, in some way. But have you seen it impact or how has it impacted?
Well, my team is primarily student employees, and there has been a change in the students, definitely. I think that I am seeing students who are, and you know what, too? It's like, I don't know, there's a fine line between their Gen Z, which has like a generation of differences from my own and other generations. So there's that. And then there's the what happened during the pandemic. So
Mm.
maybe, I don't really know where these changes lie, but, I am seeing students who are less confident, who are more, I don't want to say introverted because that's not the right word. We just talked in a previous episode about energy and things like that. They're more reclusive in a way, less engaged in person, more interested in having the team meeting be on Zoom or
Mm.
have, supporting the virtual event versus the live event. And so it's kind of having to pull people gently out of their shells to say, this is a safe thing. You can have a nice time out here physically in the world.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. And I think too, how much of that, like, to me, for the generation, I just think of like my kids, you know, the incoming freshmen this next year will have never lived in a world that didn't have an iPhone in it,
Mm.
right? Put that like into perspective. And we all kind of remember the transition from old flips to, smartphones to just this kind of change. Well, you can no longer say digital natives for the freshman class because that gives a sense that you knew what it was like before. Well, they had no idea what it was like before. They couldn't imagine, and will have never lived in that world. And so I think, I still think to like, to get my daughter to be quiet in the back of the car, I just throw an iPad on her, on her lap and say, here, entertain yourself. And now when a pandemic comes, now you're telling people you have to live in that world. We used to say as parents, as society, watch your screen time, make sure you
Mhm.
turn it off, go outside and play. Um, and now, then we go to, nope, put your entire life there.
Mhm.
That had to have an impact on the next generation coming into our campuses. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it did. And even Zach, the mystical, mysterious Zach.
Zach, I know
He's
we need to put credits for Zach on this, but
We do. He's also Gen Z, and he had to experience the ending of his college career during the pandemic. And so, that was a major shift for him and his learning. And, how do you go from I learn by sitting in a classroom to I learn by sitting on a computer? That was very challenging for him too.
yeah, yeah, interesting. Yeah. And I think so. Obviously, that means that had to change pedagogy. That changed how our faculty and one of the things I'm curious because obviously you do the live events, but obviously you're very close with the classroom side there. Um, how did your faculty take to the change, and how are they? Where is the pendulum swinging back for you? Where is it falling? How are you all handling that?
Yeah. So on the classroom side, I will say we never stopped our operations. So during the pandemic, there was a point in which the campus had to close, but classes never stopped and events pivoted as they could to virtual.
Oh, you said pivot. Take
So,
a drink. Okay.
sorry.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we never stopped. And part of that was because we are an Apple distinguished school. So every student has a MacBook and an iPad. Every faculty member has a MacBook and an iPad, and most of the staff do as well. So it was, we all are already on the same playing field. We all already have this technology. We're just going to take it home with us and off we go. That, I think that made a huge difference for us.
Hmm.
And I don't really see how we could have kept operations running if that was not the case.
Mm.
Yeah. But I will say, so now that the pendulum has swung and we are back to being primarily in person, it really depends on the faculty. There are some faculty who are passionate about hybrid or high flex. I don't know these words.
It's all the
Whatever.
same thing.
So
It's all the same thing.
it's, yeah. Who really enjoy doing that. There are some who actually prefer to be entirely virtual, who now would like to just offer online classes, and there are some that are like, no, I want to be in person. So it's all across the board. It really just depends on that particular faculty member, that department, what they feel works best for their content and for them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I almost slipped my wrist one day just on I made the mistake of logging into a webinar that was faculty member, like discussing the difference between high flex, hybrid version. Oh my God. It was an hour of my life I can never get back and traumatized me forever. And I'm like, literally, it's either there's people in front of you or there's not. You're either watching it live and interacting or they're not. That's it. Those are the options. Call it whatever you want. That's it.
You know what's
Oh.
funny is recently I have just been turning to Craig Underwood, my colleague and friend, when things happen, and I'm just like, "It's out of the CIA handbook of how to disrupt an organization from the inside." And he's like, yep. And it's just like, that's one of it. It's to argue over semantics that is
Hmm.
not actually doing anything.
Yes, but academia loves that. It's one of
Mhm.
academia's favorite things to do is argue about semantics.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, now I'm getting like my skin's starting to crawl again after just thinking of that webinar. It was so annoying. Oh. But anyway, but that does go to the underlying thing is our faculty are concerned and worried about it, right? Our faculty are wondering what things mean, how to be effective, right? I think that's also been the challenge, right? Is how do you make them effective regardless of what the modality is, right?
Mhm.
And that's and every school is different, right? For us, we're a typical brick and mortar, even though we do stream and every class is technically a hybrid class. We know that very few are paying attention to the online people, and that's fine. I mean, because most of the students are here, and you guys might be the same. But we know there's also other schools who are really leveraging the hybrid and building tuition based courses based upon that, right? And it's like, how do we make our people effective regardless of the modality? And it's a different skill. I feel bad for faculty. It is a completely different skill to have to think about.
Yeah, it is. But from my perspective, and it's, I have what I think is an interesting perspective because I started as an educator. So I do have that educator pedagogy mindset. And then I also have this additional technology mindset. And so I think what we have to do is consider, it's that begin with the end in mind thing that you do with teaching, is what is the goal of the educator? What pedagogical tactics did they intend to use? And then how does the technology meet that goal or that need? You cannot outfit a classroom with the technology that you think is neat and then just tell them, now you figure out how to work that into your class.
Mm-hmm.
You have to consider, like, what does the class look like? What is the goal of the faculty? And then mold the tech need around that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how do you go about finding that out?
Well, we talked before about, feedback, surveys, interfacing with the faculty. I think the more that you can interface, the better. Find who is the head of the department, offer to get them coffee and see, what are the people on your team doing? How do you teach? What
Mm-hmm.
makes you comfortable in the room?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and that's for us. So What's interesting again, I'm wondering if there's differences between large school, small school.
Mm,
Like for us, there's almost, when it comes to how to set up even the technology in the classrooms, what are you going to put in there? I always say, if you ask 1,000 faculty members their opinion, you're going to get 2,000 opinions back, right? And so in a way, it's like you want to find out, but on the other hand, you don't really want to find out because you can't. You kind of have to figure out a lowest common denominator, right?
right.
Especially at scale, right? And there
Right.
becomes a point where we have to drive the conversation. Go, yes, what's the overall goal of what you want to do? And kind of like I think we already said earlier, it's either going to have people in class or they're not going to be, and you're either going to stream
Hmm.
live or you're not going to stream live. Like that's it. Everything else is just a combination of those options, right? And so I think what we ended up doing is saying, okay, we're going to pick the technology that just allows for that, and then we're going to help you and train you to be effective using those tools, rather than going, here's what I need, here's what I need, here's what I need, here's what I need. Well, we're never going to answer that. 15,000
Hmm.
faculty, we're never going to answer that, right,
Hmm.
for all of them.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of us saying, okay, we're going to make some executive decisions that fit the case and answer all
Hmm.
that, and then train and train and train, in
Yes.
order for them to become effective.
Yeah, because there's also the issue of standardization. You want, to the best of your ability, anyone to walk into any classroom and have it be the same or extremely similar to what they've experienced in other buildings and other places. So, to that end, like you're saying, I think it's important to recognize, like you said, are they in person entirely or are there people online? It's going to be one or the other. And, there are certain tactics to teaching that it's always going to be this, like, is it one or the other? Are they people who are going to physically write and that needs to be shared in some way? Are they sharing entirely digital content? So
Hmm.
just like identifying the basics of the faculty and then meeting are they doing this or are they doing this? How can the system accommodate that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And made me think too, kind of even going back to what we were saying with the, students now, again, they're natural at using online tools and living in this
Hmm.
world. And in fact, I think as you pointed out, they kind of prefer it.
Hmm.
Um, do you, are you doing in events? Are you being asked for like virtual events and, like, and stuff like that, and to create kind of online communities?
Not so much, I would say, creating online communities, but we are asked to do virtual events more as a one-off now because, during the pandemic, they were exclusively virtual for obvious reasons, but now it's more of a once in a while. I think maybe I've done like 5 virtual events this year, where for whatever reason they choose to just have it be entirely online. And because we are a small institution and I don't have the budget for nicer resources, we are doing things like Zoom webinar or even a Zoom meeting, depending on what they want their event to look like. But part of it for me is, in order for that to be successful, it is very heavy training of the end client, whether it's faculty, staff, or student, to let them know this is an event. And so there are certain things that make it look and feel like an event. So
Mhm.
here's where your lighting source should come from. Here are certain colors or patterns of clothing that you should avoid. If you're someone who wears makeup, like, you should be putting it on a little bit heavier because the camera does not see things the way the human eye sees things. This
Mhm.
is how you can elevate your laptop if you're using your built-in, like just all of these little tips and tricks. And I have this all, it's at this point, it's just documentation. I share the documentation with them, and occasionally I'll meet with them to do a training on whatever platform we're using, Zoom meeting or Zoom webinar, so they can see it and play around with the features and stuff. But yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
that's how it be.
And no like virtual reality or 3D type of events.
No, we're not there.
Yeah.
I know you have your very fancy studio. Tell me about your very fancy
Very
studio.
well. No, we love our little hologram studio, but I think that's one of the things I like to me, which is interesting. Like, 'cause, you know, like, I think, you know, like, virtual reality or 3D type of events. Yeah. You know, it's one of the things I like to me, which is interesting. Like, When the pandemic came and everyone was online, my mind started like flying, going, okay, we need to do virtualized classrooms, like truly 3D classrooms, truly things where you get a feeling and an experience, a quote unquote metaverse classroom.
Mm.
But also, I mean, there's huge advantages to it. And I think the thing is, and hence we started doing that in our creative lab and putting in our, so we can send out, not just holograms, but create, 3D spaces that, people can experience, quote unquote, right? But I think that as we come out and the pendulum swings back, the excitement of that has faded, and it's like, oh, okay, we're back, we're here. Let's, it was interesting because I think, which is a shame, because I think from a business model, if the more things you can put online, you've got tuition opportunities, you've got reaching students who have disabilities, right? There's a lot of equity things that can come from it,
Yeah.
beyond just, and almost hate it. I hate seeing it kind of go back to quote unquote normal. It's funny because we always said during the pandemic, I think we'll never go back to normal. We're quickly going back to normal.
Mm.
Like we were wrong back then. People just want to forget about that era. I think going back to the fatigue. And so, but I think that it's like it, if we went through it, we need to make it mean something, right? It has to have a point coming out of it. And that's where, to me, virtualized classrooms is a huge one. Zoom on steroids, not just staring at squares, but interacting, finding ways. I think of like my daughter's playing Club Penguin, right? And taking Club Penguin, but can you create those rooms where people can interact and use educational, and actually train faculty to be effective in those types of environments? I think you can reach a lot of students in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I will say, I mean, for us, while virtual is not as popular as it needed to be during the pandemic, we have been really flourishing with hybrid. And, like I said, what happens in the classroom is dependent upon the faculty and what their department tends to do. But on the events side of things, I find myself doing hybrid more often than I find myself doing entirely live. And it's for these reasons that you're mentioning, of more accessibility, being able to reach more people. I think that, to their credit, our faculty and staff have recognized how valuable the hybrid model can be for live events.
Yeah, that's good. And do you both? I don't know if you know, for your classrooms and your events, we do streaming and recording by default, and actually by dictate. Every class is streamed and recorded, period, regardless. Even if all 100% of the people are in the room, do you all have Are you doing the same thing?
No, we don't do that.
No. And what about for in your class? Like, can faculty choose, decide, or how did you like? I guess the question is, how many spaces were completely like decked out for ability to do hybrid or recording or streaming, and were
Uh,
they beforehand?
no, beforehand, no. Maybe the one or two spaces were capable of doing that because it just wasn't a part of our culture. But
Mm-hmm.
now that we are post pandemic, every single classroom is capable of a hybrid model. And most of the spaces that we use for events are capable of a hybrid model. There are certain spaces still throughout the campus that are used for event purposes that are not outfitted. And so I have to strategically place resources to make it a hybrid event.
Mm-hmm. And do you have your events, are they typically in other classrooms, auditoriums, and stuff, or special designated event spaces, or both?
They're all over the place. We don't have a dedicated event center or event space. So it truly depends on what they want the event to look and feel like, what their anticipated attendance number is, the accessibility of the space. We are a very old institution. Some of our buildings date back to 1742,
Okay.
which means they are not accessible, and they cannot be modified because they're historic buildings. And so that we're at the mercy of, well, what are accessibility needs? That's where the event has to go then, because only some of our buildings can accommodate that.
Yeah, that you bring up a good point, and I think kind of pulling it back to the pandemic stuff, though, the, that was one of the things is the pandemic exposed the needs for accessibility,
Yeah.
exposed the needs for equity and digital equity that were often, covered before. One of the things we do, so the same thing when we outfitted a bunch of our spaces, because same thing, 100% of our spaces are available, have cameras, mics, everything, the whole shebang. Well, we have historic buildings too, not quite as old as yours, but we do have some. And when people come out like for ETC or well, I got a couple other events coming. I can't. Should I break them? Oh, well, the AVIXA Women's Council in May. I'm trying to think of. Next week. So if you're listening to this and you're in Los Angeles next week, come to the University of Southern California to support the AVIXA Women's Council event being held in our digital creative lab. When we do a campus tour, I love taking people into we have two buildings that are historic buildings. Like I can't put a screw in a wall without getting a special permit from, right? But we still had to outfit them. So like literally there's microphones that are like Gorilla tape, double stick taped to the wall that we had. Like there was one speaker in one. And so we took out the old speakers, put some Atlas IED line arrays in, and literally we 3D printed. So we had kept the same mount because we couldn't touch the wall. Took the speaker out and 3D printed our own mount then that would fit that mount to then fit the speaker. And it was crazy. And one because a huge, beautiful mosaic ceiling, gorgeous. We couldn't mount a projector, right? One, we didn't want to destroy the beauty of it. Two, you couldn't get cabling up there and power up there. So we literally custom made a coffee table that has a 20,000 lumen projector built into it. And it sits up next to, so the screen drops, a short throw, twist it, and it shoots up onto it. And it's a piece of furniture that we custom did.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's like ingenuity to how to
Yeah.
handle historic buildings. And again, but same thing, they're not accessible. If we did anything, like same thing as some of our buildings, if we wanted to retrofit one classroom, we'd just have to shut the building down for a year because it probably wouldn't pass earthquake or new standards, right? Not like it's going to fall down on you, but we'd have to earthquake retrofit it. We'd have to bring all the doorways in and get wheelchair accessible. Like there's so many things we would have to do that just makes, just for me to hang a $3,000 projector, like, yeah, no, we ain't going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's one of the things that, again, exposed. So I don't know. How are the ways that you handling? I'm assuming you saw the same thing with equity and accessibility and all that.
Yeah.
Thought.
Well, like I mentioned before, that was the one thing that I felt we did really well without even intending to, and that we were an Apple Distinguished School already, and everyone already had access to the same content. So that was a huge digital equity thing that was already in place. And like I said, I don't know how other institutions managed the pandemic without that digital equity, because the reality is, unless you are handing the students equipment like we are, when you send them home, you don't know what laptop or iPad or what a tablet, whatever, you don't know what they have access to if you haven't provided it for them. And so there could be a student who has the latest and greatest, and there could be a student that has their janky old Mac that they bought refurbished on eBay. And that's a specific example because that was me when I was a student. I mean, if the pandemic had happened when I was a student, I would have been in a really bad space because there would have been no digital equity. And even when it comes to like Wi-Fi, I think that we take that for granted. You don't know that every student has Wi-Fi at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
well, that's what we found too. And, I think that, again, there's the advantage you have is the ability to do that for all the students. We
Mhm.
couldn't. 60,000 students, we can't do that. We did, and we tried to help, and most did. Most did have their own laptops and resources, but I think we went out and bought, I know, at least a few hundred laptops to give as part of our long-term loaner program, and then we got a third party to send out for people to be able to use during the pandemic. I think we spent close to $1 million in laptops just over the pandemic to send it out, and Wi-Fi hotspots. I think it was $1 million for both of those things together. You
Yeah.
know, which is a crazy number, but that tells you, okay, how important the services we provide every day, how important our computer labs are. There's $1 million worth of Wi-Fi and laptops and computers needed by our students every year that we
Mhm.
don't see, right?
Mhm.
That's significant,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
And we had to, you have to, it's the right thing to do, to handle
Mhm.
that. Um, yeah, no, that's, oh, boy,
Yeah.
this time, I really hope we don't ever forget the lessons we learned from this. It'd be such a
Yeah.
shame.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, when you think accessibility too, even when you are doing a hybrid model, anytime you have that additional modality in place, now we have access to additional things like live closed captioning, that we might not have if we are not including a virtual component. So yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can get creative in increasing accessibility with doing a hybrid model.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think especially, again, I think that's huge. And again, so many people with disabilities, so many people who can now partake and have that participation because we're bringing content to them. They're not having to
Yes.
go to the content.
Yes.
And I think that's really the key in the difference, right? Is that
Mhm.
delivery. Um,
Yeah.
what about production value? Are you seeing again, I think sometimes to our faculty, just being on camera and shooting it out there is good enough. But does
Mhm.
that actually answer the question or is that good for the people on the far end? I don't know. How are you all handling the quality issue?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the what's happening in the classrooms, I don't think the faculty care a whole lot about that. That's not what their focus is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we do have some high quality PTZ cameras. Pretty much all of our classrooms are PTZ, and the faculty do have control on the touch panel on how they would like the camera to look. And some of them adjust it, and some of them frankly just do not seem to care, and that's okay. That's not, it's not their job to care. Their job is to deliver their content. And then for the events, we did have to invest in higher quality cameras and some higher quality equipment because we did, our goal is to provide exceptional service, and it's not exceptional if it looks grainy,
Mm-hmm.
and yucky. So we did have to invest in some higher quality equipment.
Yeah. Do you guys do auto tracking cameras, or do you do them all manual?
It's it's all manual. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate auto tracking cameras
Yeah.
with a passion, like literally with a passion. Especially when people ask me about them. Like I'm sorry, everyone. But this is not the first time. But let me tick off some vendors too, because they'll always sell. They look, it tracks you when you walk. Great. So now, by the way, the far end students don't want to see the faculty. They want to see the whiteboard. And if
Mhm.
the faculty walks away, now they can't see the content they actually want to see. No one cares about the faculty member. They don't. And yeah, so I was like, so every time we have like auto tracking, the first thing I do, and we do have some, we turn it off. And we're like, and they're like, would they use? And it's funny because then I'll see some like like one of the companies will like tweet out they use our auto tracking, like, yeah, in the off mode. We use it in the off mode. We do 3 presets: lectern only, whiteboard area, full room. That's it.
Yes. That's what we do too. Yes. We do have maybe a handful of conference room situations where we do keep the auto tracking on. People tend to like if they're at a long table situation, they tend to like it there.
Yeah.
And then I do have some meeting owls that I use as resources. So if I'm going into a space that they want to be hybrid and that technology will work for that space. I do like the meeting owls a lot and they do auto track. What I like about them is they do the 360 view at the top and
Mm,
then break out into sections of auto tracking. And that has been good for events because it's very dynamic and interesting.
mm.
Yeah. Although Zach did Zach
Zach.
he
I feel like we need a special sound effect for Zach. Hold
yes,
on.
we do.
Hold on.
Uh,
What can I do? How about here? All right. Say his name again.
Zach.
Did
He
that?
um
There we go.
he, oh my God, my beloved Zach. He had to use a meeting owl in a room that, had no technology built in. That's why we're using it. And he like sat in a corner just monitoring the event. And for whatever reason, the owl like focused in on him. Like he became one of the pictures. And he was like, what do I do with this? Because like I need to edit the video now and I don't want to be in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't and I think I had sound off. Here's the sound you may not have heard.
There it
There it
is.
is. So yeah, because you've been doing this without the without being able
Yeah.
to hear the sound.
That's a great sound for him. He is magic.
Yeah, there you go. See, the first person to get his own, his own sound effect, and he's never even been on the show. He's now a mystical creature of the Higher Ed AV podcast.
Yes.
That is fantastic. Now, are you going to tell him this?
I have told him this. Yeah, I've told him, like, I do drop your name in podcasts. Like, people are aware of your existence. And he just chuckled. He thought that was very funny. And I talked to him about getting online, and he was like, I know that I have to get a LinkedIn for like professional stuff and I'll get around to it. I don't want to be on social media. It's just this other thing I have to worry about. And I was just like, you truly are a mystical creature.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I feel like if I ever met him though, then it would be like the part of the fun of it is the fact he's a mystical person and we can't look him up. Like he this literally could be the best practical joke you're playing and that he doesn't actually exist. You know?
Or I think he exists. Oh my God, that's
Oh.
a good question. People are like, can other people see Zach?
Craig is you're going, who is she talking to every day? Like, she sure talks to herself a lot. Who is this Zach person?
I just broke. I broke and I made him up.
And that's what the pandemic did to Britt.
Yeah.
Making up imaginary friends.
Oh man.
Did you have an imaginary friend as a child?
I think that I did. There's a fine line between. I'm not sure that I made people up because my mom is convinced that I saw ghosts as a child. So it's not entirely sure if I made people up or if I was seeing people.
Wow. Okay.
I like your shocked face. Yeah, I know.
That is shock faced. I was gonna see if there was a sound effect for that, but there is not. There isn't. Yeah. Nope. There isn't.
spooky.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, all right. Well, then, have you seen any famous dead people? Like, I mean, if you see dead people, we can't leave this.
To be fair, I don't currently see dead people. It stopped when I was maybe like 5 or so, but like as a 3 and 4-year old, I would be like talking in my room, like having a full-blown conversation. And my mom was like, "Who are you talking to?" And I would describe the person and the things that they were saying. And she like pulled out an old photo album and was like, "Do you see the person here?" And I was like, "There." And it was like my grandfather who had passed before I was born.
Whoa.
Yeah, weird stuff.
That's trippy. Are you a
Mhm.
little bummed that you can't do it now?
No, you know what? I'm too much of a horror fan to want that in my life.
Mm.
Like to me as an adult, I'm like, that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No. Yeah.
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 Did I have an imaginary? I'm wondering if I had an imaginary. I know I did. I don't remember. Don't remember his name, but I do know that he was a secret agent. That's all I do remember.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I was secretly a secret agent. I could be right now, and you don't know it.
We don't
This is
know.
my cover.
Yeah. It's a very elaborate cover.
It's a huge cover. I mean, who would ever think it, right?
Yeah.
You know, because that's what secret agents do. They go into public life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But see,
Yeah.
and that's the shtick, because no one would then expect it, right? It's like they say, have you ever watched, the documentaries about the people back and they think all these famous people, famous actors in the 50s were actually double agents and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, I love a good conspiracy theory like that.
mm-hmm. You never
Yeah.
know.
No,
You
you
never
don't.
know. But
Just like we don't know if Zach is real. We
oh,
don't know if you're a secret. We don't know if you're a secret agent. We just don't know.
and you could still be seeing dead people and you just don't
For
want
all
them
I
to.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half the people you see when you're walking down the street might not actually be there.
Spooky.
Yeah. All right. How did this come? How did we get there from the pandemic? And
Um,
do we have closing pandemic? How did it change your thoughts before we wrap it round?
yeah. I mean, I truly think, and I've said this before, I think that the hybrid model was always going to come. I think that the pandemic accelerated it. And I do think in a lot of ways we live very hybrid lives, because what hybrid is the joining of the live physical world and the digital world. And so, I can get on my phone right now, which is the digital world, and I can look at pictures of food and tap them, and then food will physically appear at my door. Like, I'm living a hybrid life naturally. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of our students are, and I bet the faculty and staff are as well. They just aren't recognizing that as a hybrid life. So the more we think of it that way, that it's the merging of the digital and physical world, I think that makes hybrid a very natural experience and a very important experience, because like we were saying before, it brings more people to the table that otherwise would not have been able to get there. It gives them resources at that table that they wouldn't have otherwise had. And if anyone is afraid of hybrid or wishing it would go away, I think they should rethink that.
Yep. I will totally agree. My kind of closing thought on it is right on. I love what you were saying. I think that a lot of people, I don't like that we've given it a category, right? I
Mm,
think education is just education, teaching is just teaching, right? And we try to put it in this bucket of it being its own thing. But like you said, we live in this digital world. We live in a hybrid world. We live, and it's only going more. And I always say, if you don't realize how far it's come and how much we live in an integrated world, just go back to your iPhone 1 with only things you could do on that and see if you would be satisfied.
right.
It's the gradual change that's coming and still coming, whether we're looking into virtual worlds or AI and all these things that add to human automation, right? And I think um, that's where we want to look and just understand that hybrid is not it's like I wish I could just erase the word and we just talk about teaching and learning, and we just talk about content delivery, and then just tell me what
Yes.
modality do you want it. Do you want it in person with someone there, or do we need it someone going out, and are they coming and sending information back? That's all I need to know. As you started out and you did your wonderful quote of the CTS book about connect connection, or whatever the line is.
Yeah.
The AV is just communication between two people or whatever. Two things. I can see. I'm glad I don't take the test now. And I think that's all we need to know. And then just tell me the modality you want it, and I'll get you the right tools to make that happen. And I think if we simplify it in that way, it makes us look at the world more holistically, and just seeing that everything is integrated together in that some way. So,
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I would also add on to that, when you're describing what you were doing, please don't call it the new normal. I don't know what it is about the phrase the new normal, but I hate it so much.
yeah, yeah, that is true. Well, and the funny thing is normal is always changing, but people don't realize it.
Right.
That's why we talk about things in decades and eras and all that. But to the point at that moment, that person, that's what normal is. But it's always changing. So there's always a new norm. Like, doesn't matter if it went through the pandemic, eras change. Yes, I'm with you on that. Just for that, you get a Zach chime. That, yes, there we go. All right. Wrap it around. You want to go first on this one?
Okay,
What
I
is
have to think of a good question. Okay. So we talked a lot about technology that are in our classrooms and everything. So if your classroom was going down and you could only save one piece of equipment, what is the one piece of equipment you would save?
Oh, let's say one piece of equipment if it was going down. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I guess the first thing in my it's a cop out answer, but the first thing in my mind was I went to the people in the room. I don't care about the stuff. And nothing. It's just stuff.
No,
Uh,
there's no people. There's no people in the room.
so
It's
I
just
gotta
the
grab my own laptop or phone that's sitting on the lectern. There we go. That's it. I can't live without my laptop and my phone. Everything else can go. Sorry, everybody, but everything else can. Bye bye. I don't need you.
sorry 20,000 lumen projector and a coffee table. We're not saving you.
You know what? It needs a new one anyway. So there we go. And what am I gonna do? Carry that thing out anyway? I mean, like, what kind of look would people be giving me? I'm walking out of a room, big old projector. Like, I get. Then again, the bosses would probably give you kudos, like, good job for trying. Now, next time, just save your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I got it. I guess gonna have to be. It's gonna have to be whatever the computer, that peripheral device is all going down. Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
There's
that's
probably an
fair.
obvious answer that I'm not thinking, but I don't know. What would it be for you? That doesn't your question. What would it be for you?
I don't know. Because I mean, everything is obviously like installed inside a lectern, but like if I was super speedy, I had my tools and I'm just ripping something out and being like, I'm saving this, it would be the Blu-ray player. Because as you
Yes,
can
you
see
have the
behind me, oh,
collection. You have
I
the
am a
collection.
collector of physical media.
All right. See that? See that's fair. You have a reason behind it. You have a reason behind it. Yeah, but also remember, most of our classrooms are all cloud and server stuff. So technically, it's very little equipment in the room. So maybe I'd have to say I'd save the server if it would happen to be going down,
Ooh,
right? That
yeah.
would be very important. Yes,
Mhm.
I'd have to save the server. All right. So yours, we're going to look ahead a little bit. We're only a few weeks away to Infocom, as you might have seen teasers. Especially everybody watching by now, you've seen all the teasers about all the swag we're doing. What are the best swag things you've received at events or as gifts or things like that from?
Mhm. I mean, it sounds generic, but I do love a t-shirt. And it doesn't even have to be my size because then it's a sleep shirt. So, yeah.
I see. So are you gonna snag two Hetma shirts then?
Oh, of
One to
course.
wear and you're like, I didn't get mine yet. Sorry. I need one for Zach. There you go. Actually, you know what? I think we got to take one back for Zach.
Oh, 100%.
You know, I, that's because he is just somebody now. He's
Yeah.
so BC has the moniker of being the most unknown known person in AV, and now I have a feeling Zach is kind of taking that too.
Yeah, he's gonna give BC a run for his money with
Yeah.
how mysterious he is.
Yeah, so I think BC just might have to be just the Godfather now. That's it. You know.
That's a good role for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's end this one right. How do people get a hold of you?
Okay, so I am Brave Brit on Twitter, and my podcast also has a Twitter because, of course, it does, which is Brave Space. And then I am on LinkedIn as Britt Yenser. And Joe, how can people get a hold of you?
People can find me on all the socials at Josiah Way, and of course, make sure you follow Higher Ed AV at Higher Ed AV on all of the socials, including Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Same socials everywhere. There we go.
Yeah.
That's it. All right, let's end this thing. Here we
All
go.
right. Yeah.
Go ahead. It's
This
all
has
yours.
This has been a Higher Ed AV Media podcast. Here we are, and the opinions expressed here were our own and not those of our companies, institutions, or employers. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, but again, if you didn't, that's okay. Just try again next time. Maybe you'll like it when I'm not here. This was my last episode. Maybe it was me.
Last for now.
Last
for now. I don't know. We're gonna get. We've recorded all 4 of these before any of them have come out. So we don't know. People would love it, hate it. We'll watch the, So I don't know. Might have to become a staple. It might have to have its own cameos throughout. We'll find out. Or
Bye for
it'll
now,
never
friends.
happen again. Oh,
Sorry.